This episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast is brought to you in part by Xero. Xero is a powerful cloud accounting software that improves efficiencies across your practice. With all client data stored on a single unified ledger, you and your clients can easily access and collaborate on the same set of books. Xero's advisor tools and automation solutions reduce time-consuming manual tasks and put data entry on autopilot. Work faster and more efficiently than ever before with Xero. Visit xero.com/accounting insiders to learn more. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast. My name is Gary DeHart. I am the publisher of Insightful Accountant and the host of the Accounting Insiders podcast. And my guest today is Peter Leonard. Peter is the founder of MyWorks Software. MyWorks is an e-commerce. I don't know the right way to say it, so I'm going to let you say it, Peter. What exactly is MyWorks? And welcome. Thanks for taking a few minutes to have a conversation.
Thanks, Gary. It's great to be here. I appreciate your time. MyWorks helps bookkeepers and e-commerce store owners automate their bookkeeping and help keep their e-commerce store and accounting platform up to date in real time, saving them any type of manual entry while also automating processes like syncing sales, payments, reconciliation, even products, inventory, and price levels.
Okay. And I imagine that automation is something you guys talk about all the time and try. Do you have to do a lot of kind of education or educating the client base on what can be automated?
Yeah, and so we'll see a interesting kind of spectrum among our users of users that have been using, QuickBooks Desktop, for example, for 15 years, and Joe in the chair has been that's the only job every day is just entering orders manually into QuickBooks to keep up. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, Joe, you can do other funner things now that we're automating how we sync sales." So sometimes it's a kind of a light bulb on their end that says, "Hey, we've been doing this process manually for so long. Why don't we think about automating it?" Other times they already know they want to automate it, but maybe they have kind of more custom workflows in place around how specifically they need fields and things like orders or customers or payments to show up in QuickBooks. So it's a little bit more of a journey to find a tool that can sync it exactly the way they need. They already know that they need it to show up in QuickBooks.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And we'll probably touch on that a little bit more too in our conversation. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, what's your background? How'd you end up? Because you founded, or were you founder, co-founder?
Yeah,
Um,
founder.
Founder, okay, of MyWorks. And so what were you doing before that led you to this?
Yeah, a bit of a journey for us as well. We actually started out doing web development about 10 years ago. So we'd help e-commerce store owners on platforms like WooCommerce, primarily a bit of Shopify, help kind of build and launch an e-commerce store. And so we enjoy doing that, working with individual users, kind of seeing what their use cases are as we help build their site. And that kind of turned very quickly into us helping them manage their site once they launched and seeing a pretty common pain point that they were having trouble kind of, especially with a very successful store, accepting orders, updating products and inventory, and keeping that up to date in their accounting platform. So we kind of quickly pivoted and launched our product that does what it does today, which helps connect e-commerce platforms like WooCommerce and Shopify to accounting platforms like QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Desktop, even Xero, and kind of continuing to kind of solve that pain point for our users while also listening to them very closely and kind of supporting a lot of the custom needs that they have for just different workflows or scenarios they might have as they keep their platforms in sync.
Okay. And say, like you say, supporting needs as they pop up. Are you
Yeah.
doing that? Is that your employees that are supporting, or do you have like like a VAR network that does implementation work, or what does that look like?
We do all implementation internally. So our team works with each user, and all of our plans actually include a free setup call where we'll help set up our software with our users, help them kind of set up and manage the sync. And now we're about 9 years old, and our product is so mature that we don't do a lot of custom implementation anymore, just because 99% of the time our settings that already exist will accomplish what a user is looking to do. So for things like custom field mapping, for example, syncing different transactions at different points in their life cycle, just a few examples, but that's something that our sync already supports. So it's really just as simple as configuring it initially, and then it works on its own going forward.
Yeah, I guess after 9 years, you've done most everything at least once, right? So,
That's exactly right.
so that probably helps. So, so automating accounting, and I mean, to me, I think anytime you can automate anything, is a good thing. So what does that look like? What are we talking about when we're saying, okay, we're going to automate some of the accounting process or the accounting workflow?
Sure, for sure. The most common aspect there is really around sales and revenue. So what our sync does is it takes e-commerce sales that occur throughout the course of the day in an e-commerce platform like WooCommerce or Shopify, and it automatically records those as transactions, for example, sales receipts or invoices, into the QuickBooks accounting or into the accounting platform, whether that's QuickBooks Online, Desktop, or Xero. And it does so really with a ton of focus on accuracy. So, for example, syncing the full customer record, all of the details of the invoice, as well as the payment. So right off the bat, that just helps save quite a bit of time in manual entry, but it also takes out manual error. So when they do things further on down the road, like run P&L reports, balance sheets, product and inventory valuation reports, even doing reconciliation, they can jump to that step almost immediately because there's no manual entry involved, but also no manual error that might happen if someone was entering that manually.
Okay. So have you seen just over the years that um, the accounting professionals and our primary audience, not exclusive, but primarily our audience is like a public accounting professional, a QuickBooks Pro advisor or a Xero advisor, or do you have an experience of accounting professionals just going, I don't deal with e-commerce. It's not my thing. It's too complicated.
Sure, and we've seen an interesting trend, I would say, over the last 5 years as we talk with our accounting partners and new accountants around this. I think there still is today that subset of accountants that are, and of course, it really depends on industry. You'll have accountant that is in construction or trade industry that they never really see this part of it, and that's the industry they prefer to focus on, and that's great. But we have seen more and more accountants that are more open and familiar with e-commerce. And sometimes it's through just their first e-commerce client coming to them and saying, hey, I need you to do accounting. Oh, and also I sell on e-commerce, and them trying to kind of figure out how they need to handle that type of workflow. Others is a bit more intentional where they say, hey, this is a new industry that we see is growing very rapidly, and we'd like to try and work to attract more users there. And they'll kind of put some processes and knowledge in place at their firm to be able to more easily accept those type of clients. But I would say it's more so now than in the past, but definitely it's a pushback kind of from some groups of accountants that just don't want to deal with it.
Right. Well, what does that learning curve look like? Let's say I'm coming in totally blind, or I run across this great company who says, hey, I want you to do my taxes, but you also have to do my accounting. And by the way, we're a heavy e-commerce business,
Yep.
but it's
Yep.
such a good opportunity. I can't pass it up. What is my learning curve to get to where I'm at least knowledgeable enough to be able to help that client?
Yeah. To be honest, it's not as much as most accountants expect. Typically, the biggest difference is that, say, for example, you're comparing to more of a trade or construction type of client. You're just dealing with normal invoices and payments. Everything's manual. There's a specific project. It was paid. They move on to the next project. With e-commerce, it's a lot more of a call it per order or just a daily flow. The main difference there being in terms of cash flow coming in. So normally on an e-commerce store, there'll be uh, customers that pay by credit card, for example, sometimes PayPal or other payment methods, and those hit the bank account normally on a delayed basis of 3 or 4 days, once for each day of sales. And so they have, call it at the end of the month, about 30 to 30 deposits from a credit card processor that they then have to kind of take and translate into revenue. And usually, especially if you want that type of detail in an accounting platform like QuickBooks or Xero to do things like, how much product was sold or track that back to inventory and inventory valuations, there's a lot of work to do to turn those into things like invoices and sales receipts, which of course is what we do. But generally, they're able to, once they understand that flow where there's this is the deposits coming in, this is why they're coming in this way, and this is what they're from, which is from e-commerce orders. They're then able to take a tool like ours and handle the rest of the data that is behind those deposits per se. to then really just turn it into normal reconciling at the end of the month of saying, here's the money that's coming in from credit card or PayPal deposits. I can already match it to the revenue data that's already there in QuickBooks. And at that point, it's really just about reconciling money coming in and what it is matched up to.
And you mentioned kind of end of month reconcile. Do you find that clients are heavy in e-commerce? Are they doing a month end, or are they really doing we're really daily or at least every couple of days reconciling?
Um, the good part is it's kind of up to them. So honestly, what we've seen it where they'll do sometimes even a quarter end if they're a kind of a smaller client or a smaller just user that just doesn't have the transactions that justifies doing a monthly reconciliation. But because of things like bank feeds in QuickBooks Online Desktop and Zero, it can totally be a day-to-day thing where a deposit comes in, the sales data is already there because we sync it in real time. And so you can easily match it up, and the end of the month reconcile then turns into like a one click because you already have everything recorded. It matches up to your bank. There's nothing to do except accept that.
Right. So is there anything else then? I think you mentioned a minute ago, but from the reasons to automate, I mean, bad data entry seems like would be the absolute number one. What are the
Yep.
other core points that somebody
Yeah.
would be considering?
One of those is depth of reporting. So we'll see a lot of users that will come to us and say, "Hey, I already have the data in my WooCommerce store or my Shopify store. What's the benefit of having this in QuickBooks?" And so, especially when they compare it to saying, "Well, I could just if I had $20,000 of sales in my e-commerce store, why couldn't I just make a $20,000 journal entry in QuickBooks at the end of the month and just call it a day?" And the main reason for that is just you're paying for QuickBooks, which is a great reporting tool that has a huge depth of reports, and you're losing that functionality by not bringing in super specific individual data that you can then pull into things like sales tax liability reports, customer reports, regional reports, product level reports, which of course you would have to otherwise enter manually in QuickBooks. So depth of reporting is very large, and we see that with a lot of our more pro level users where they know what they need to report on in QuickBooks, and the issue is just getting that data there. Another big reason is product and inventory level tracking. So if they're tracking inventory levels in QuickBooks, it's of course a big deal to keep those continually updated, especially as they manufacture or receive new inventory in. And they're already used to doing that in QuickBooks and having QuickBooks be their, call it, master for that data. And so by using a tool like ours, they can continue doing exactly what they do every day in QuickBooks for inventory while having our sync keep their store up to date for inventory. So as they make manual changes for loss or recounts in QuickBooks, that can keep their store up to date so they're not overselling or underselling, while also tracking cost of goods perfectly in QuickBooks.
Right. And so I think you may have mentioned a little bit earlier too, just from or it may have been prior to us going live, but cash flow management and is having this. You said it is real time sync, right? I mean,
Right.
so if I'm live and I'm syncing real time, I really can have a pretty good idea of cash flow. And I think you said it's typically 2 to 3 days before it hits, like from the bank or from the processor. Is that right?
Yeah, that'll just be in your bank feed. But still, at the end of that day, or throughout the day, though, still you'd be able to run accurate P&Ls and balance sheets because, for example, those type of payments where the deposit hasn't hit your bank account yet would still be in an account like undeposited funds. But yeah, yep, agreed.
Yeah. And
That
so,
that
yeah, I
makes it
mean,
very valuable.
right. Yeah. And so it seems to me like all of these things that we've touched on are reasons for accounting firms to embrace e-commerce, right? Because one, there's software that clients probably don't know about because they're just, again, I'm just making my widgets and trying to sell my
Mhm.
widgets via whatever these channels are.
Right.
And I need somebody with experience from the outside taking a look at my business and going, hey, why are you using the green ledger paper? Seriously.
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
right. I mean, to have a different perspective and a different viewpoint where because the accounting professionals have worked, potentially with, tens or hundreds of clients that they can bring their perspective to. Um, and so it just
And best
seems like great
practices.
consulting opportunities to me
Mhm.
are, exist in e-commerce, but it also seems that there is kind of a little bit of a pushback. You did mention that not as much of a pushback as it was 5 years ago. Um, but maybe it's just because it's our daily life now, right? I mean, who doesn't buy something every day online? Uh,
Right.
Seems like we do in our house. So, the um, so sticking in that vein, do you guys? I know you have a partner program, and is part of that partner program? I guess two questions. Well, one question, and that is, does the partner program provide resources to help accounting professionals understand e-commerce and to understand all the nuances of that business? And then the other one's not really a question, but just share a little bit more about the partner program that you guys
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. Definitely. And going back to your previous point, we do indeed see that our most successful accountant partners already are ones that kind of have really just sometimes just started with one e-commerce client, kind of understood what their business workflows look like, and then applied those same best practices to other clients and become very successful in saying, hey, we understand what e-commerce accounting is. We have our own workflows around that, and we can make it very seamless to handle that for new clients. But yes, we have
Okay.
excellent partner program that has quite a bit of resources and more white glove support from us as they first onboard their first client, for example, but also then continue to use our sync for multiple clients. So those resources include things like initial onboarding calls. So we'll do one-on-one onboarding calls with them and or their team to help just share general information about e-commerce accounting if they might be brand new to that, or more specifics around what our sync does. And if they already are used to e-commerce accounting, kind of aligning what they're expecting e-commerce accounting to look like in their books with what our sync can do for that, and making sure that's a great match. And then that also includes white glove support going forward. So as they continue to onboard either new clients or using a tool like ours for existing clients, we'll be either right there along with them, helping that client get set up, or just they can send the client directly to us and we'll help that client directly. And all that's included. There's no extra charge for implementation, or setup or support for those users or our accountants. So in addition to that, we do provide additional resources and white papers and case studies for our accountants to refer to, as they're either looking for examples to share with their clients, or just wanting to learn more about our sync. And additionally, we share a 10% off discount that they can extend to their clients, or a commission that they can apply to themselves for clients that they have that they use our sync for.
Okay. Because is it a monthly fee that the end user is paying?
They can choose or annual. So annual is slightly discounted. Otherwise, it's monthly.
Okay. Is that based on number of transactions, or we don't want to
Yep.
get into
So
the
there's a
details
couple
of the sales side of it,
for
but
sure. Yeah, there's a couple different tiers. We actually have a forever free plan for our QuickBooks Online Sync. So if the client is syncing under 20 orders a month, they can use our sync completely free, support included, and there's no charge. Other than that, there's a couple of other tiers going up to unlimited, that are really mainly based around how many orders they sync per month, whether that's 300, 500, 1,000 or more.
gotcha. Okay. Is so back on the automation side of it. So it's going to save me time. It's going to save errors, manual errors that we're people, we make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
And what are other considerations that an accounting firm wants to look at when they're considering, let's say if they already have e-commerce clients and they're considering tools like MyWorks?
Yeah. Um, Especially if they're running comparisons. One of the things that my work stands out for is basically our depth of features. So super easy to customize, whether that is things like custom field mapping for syncing orders in, how we handle bank deposits for syncing payments and reconciliations, and just the amount of features that we have that let them control in one way or another how we sync data from their e-commerce platform to QuickBooks, with the goal of that really being that the accountant or their client can say, hey, this is entering these transactions in QuickBooks exactly as if I had entered them myself manually. So really, really large level of control around how that sync brings data in, or both ways.
And then what does that onboarding look like? Now we're kind of into product, and
Yeah.
so we talked kind of high level about, okay, here's why you've got e-commerce clients, or you should have e-commerce clients. If you don't, you should go find some, because it sounds like there's great opportunity there. But if we're going to go from here's kind of the why, now let's dive a little bit deeper into my work. So let's say I have an e-commerce client and I decide, hey, it's time for you guys to be using my works. How long is that going to take? What is that process going to look like? And again, we're going to stick with the I know nothing. Well, I have one client who's e-commerce. I don't really know anything about my works, but I know they need it because somebody
Mhm.
else told me they need it. What does that look like from an onboarding standpoint?
Yeah, typically that onboarding call is around 30 minutes. So we will extend it as really as long as needed to make sure that they're fully set up. But it can take as quickly as 15 minutes. So a lot of the way that our sync works is meant to be able to start quickly out of the box. So other than a few small things like setting up a few defaults, telling us what you'd like us to sync, like customers, orders, products, inventory levels. Some users won't sync pricing, for example, because they need different prices in e-commerce versus accounting. Um,
Okay.
and then really just think mapping existing data together like products. So if they already have products in their e-commerce platform and in their accounting platform, they can easily map them together. If they don't, our sync lets them easily push them. So we'll have users that say, hey, I just started with I just started with QuickBooks last month, but I've been using Shopify for 5 years. And so they have thousands of products that they need to push over from Shopify into QuickBooks. And our sync can help them do that just to really get off the ground more quickly. Um,
Okay.
Once that's complete, though, and again, that is really kind of usually turns into a bit of a question and answer session as they ask, "Hey, this is what I need to have done." We bring them to the setting that shows them how that will actually accomplish that, and just kind of run through making sure our sync is set up the way they want it to be set up. But typically, that's 30 minutes. Can be a little bit quicker if they have a little bit better idea of what they know and what they expect. Can be a little bit longer if we just cover additional questions.
And do you find that, like on a call like that, is that call typically the end user client, the accounting professional, both?
We've seen a mix of all three. The most successful calls are when both the end user and the accountant are on. Just even if the accountant says nothing and they're just in the background listening, that way they at least know what to expect. They see how the client wants the data is sent into QuickBooks. They see how we're setting it up, and they at least know what to expect. Versus the client being like, "Hey, just so you know, last week I set up this tool and it's syncing stuff now," and they don't know what to expect. Other times, the
You
accountant,
did what?
especially if
No, don't do. Yeah.
exactly, they're like, "What product did you set? What account is this going into?" Um, yeah, but we have also seen really successful calls where it's just the accountant, because especially if they know what they want in how this data is coming into their books, it's very easy for the accountant to just make those decisions, and we help walk through the rest of the settings.
Okay. And then what's in the MyWorks pipeline? What are you guys working on?
Yeah, we most recently announced our sync between Shopify and QuickBooks Desktop. So we're really excited to bring that to our enterprise users. Really build a lot more support around more specific store owners that sell on platforms like Shopify Plus, have even more complex workflows in QuickBooks Desktop or QuickBooks Online. But what's next for us is most likely integrating with a more ERP type of system like Sage, for example, um, or a different ERP.
Right. Okay. And is that now I don't know anything about integration work. So going from a QuickBooks world, Zero world into a product like Sage or Intact or uh, the others,
NetSuite.
Acumatica,
Yep. Right.
NetSuite. Um, what does that load look like for you guys? I mean,
Yeah.
is it like, wow, this is completely different than anything we've worked in because they build everything differently? Again, I don't
For
know.
sure. For sure.
Is it a pretty big lift?
It can be it can certainly have different elements that we just wouldn't normally see in a less ERP type of solution like QuickBooks. But we have 10 plus years now of both accounting and e-commerce experience behind us. So one of the things that that's one of the reasons we've waited to add support like this until now to make sure that we're understanding the use case. We've identified that there's a need out there, and so at that point it's really just kind of understanding customers' specific needs, and we have development experience and accounting experience now behind us that we're able to pretty easily, at least much more easily than 10 years ago, build those type of integrations. So, and we've have users in over 100 countries around the world. So we have quite a bit of breadth of knowledge to pull from that can help us build an integration that works the way that it needs to work.
Right. And is it currently it's online, desktop, and Zero?
and Zero, correct. And then
Okay.
e-commerce platforms are WooCommerce and Shopify.
Okay. Okay. Then, so what about how do people track you guys down? I know previously you said you guys, you'll be at Intuit Connect, or at least in the green room when we were talking before.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we're
and
excited. We're a sponsor at Intuit Connect this year. So we have a booth and we'd love to see. We have a couple of partners that have told us they're already excited to drop by and see us. And we'd love to field questions, and we'll be there with demos and our sales team to help answer any questions that users might have there. But otherwise, we're in the Xero App Store, we're in the QuickBooks Online and Desktop App Store, and we're in the Shopify and WooCommerce app stores as well. So hopefully it should be hard not to find us. But
Right.
we're available there, and of course on our website is myworks.software.
and it's just straight up myworks.com, not an X, not a
Just .software, not .com.
okay. Yeah. And then you said dot software?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I just want to make sure because we'll drop that into the into the bottom on video. So I just want to make sure we do get
Perfect.
that right.
Great.
So it's myworks dot.
Software.
Okay. Very good. Well, I think is there anything we didn't touch on, because we had a list of things that we were going to cover. I think we covered most of them, not necessarily in the order that we had talked about before, but I think we did hit the highlights.
Agreed. Nothing I think that we didn't cover. Great conversation.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to go back to notes here in about the partner program. Um, Prerequisites for the partner program.
Yes, is having at least one paid client on MyWorks
Okay.
plan. So that's something that we'll help cover with them in onboarding. But that partner program will officially start as soon as they have their first paid client.
Okay. And then co-marketing opportunities. What does that look like?
Yeah. So touching on those case studies that we mentioned earlier, those one of the areas that we find new case studies for is reaching out to our accountants, and so they have the opportunity to be featured in one of those case studies for either their firm itself as a whole, or for one of their clients that they're successfully using our sync for. But additionally, we'll do social media shout outs. They'll have a public profile in the partner directory on our site, which we recently launched this year. And one of the main reasons we launched that was we will see all these successful store owners that find our sync on their own and begin using it. And they're like, hey, I understand what this does. This is great, but I can't do my QuickBooks all by myself, and I need an accountant. And I'm really struggling to find someone that knows QuickBooks, knows e-commerce, and as just a plus, knows MyWorks. And so this partner directory has been a really, really great tool for them and for us to be able to refer to them and say, hey, you don't even have to go out and look. Here's a great list of accountants that are possibly in your region, very, very much so in your country, but that also have a really great base understanding of not just your accounting platform, but also what you're doing on e-commerce. So a really great tool to find new leads.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was on your website earlier and I saw that,
Yeah.
and I intended to ask you about it, but I didn't write it
Yep.
down. So I totally
Yep.
forgot about
Great.
it. So, well, very good. Well, we will certainly see you at Intuit Connect in Las Vegas, and that's what, a month or so, or a little more than a month out, I
A
think.
little more than a month, but it's coming up fast. So looking
Oh
forward to
boy, yeah. Better get busy,
it.
because
Always.
that should be an excellent show. It's not an inexpensive show for anybody, but it certainly
You,
is
you get you
a
get what
good
you pay for, though.
good event.
So exactly,
Yeah,
it's always great to be there.
very good. All right, anything in parting? Anything that again that we may have not touched on, or
I am just scanning through our list, but I think that's definitely hit all the high points. So I can't see anything that I think we missed.
all right. Well, very good, Peter. I appreciate your time, and we will see you in about 5.5 or 6 weeks in Las Vegas.
Sounds great. Thanks, Gary. Likewise, appreciate your
Thank you.
time.